So today I did something that was something I've never done before. That was I voted, and for some of you, you're like, "What? You're like almost 40 years old and you've never voted." And others of you are like, "Uh oh, you voted." So I'll explain where there's how I ended up here. All right, so I grew up Mennonite, and the Mennonites have a very sort of pacifist view, if you will, or a the terminology is non-resistant is the interior terminology used, and it has the idea of non-retaliation, and kind of also embodying all of that is a non-involvement with the military, and kind of by extension, I would say typically fairly low involvement with government. Now, does that mean they do not have strong political opinions? Of course not. But generally, in many of those circles, it's frowned upon to vote and to hold public office or to be a part of the military. So that's where I grew up at. And even though I've not been a Mennonite now for quite a number of years, I still have been a little queasy, maybe if you will, about engaging in the political process, even though I kind of enjoy watching politics, kind of like enjoy watching sports, to see which team wins and that sort of thing. Um, I would say with some of the church changes that we made in the last several years, I have become more open to the idea of political involvement as a as something that a Christian may want to do as a part of their mission here on in the earth, is to also to have a positive effect in the political sphere. And so anyway, so today I went and voted for the first time. I've got my sticker here that says I voted, and yeah, it's a very just kind of interesting space to be in, because where I came from, voting was frowned upon. Um, where I'm at now, not voting would be frowned upon, and so having existed in both of those cultures now, it's quite unique to take this next step here. Um, More broadly, what do I think about Christians in politics? So I do think, like, given the option, right, I would prefer to have a Christian in a political office versus a non-Christian, and so I do support the idea of Christians being in political office, and I do think that God does care about the affairs of nations. You can see in the Old Testament he was very heavily involved in the in nations and their outcomes, if you will. Of course, I don't think being a Christian like exempts you from making stupid decisions if you're in public office. It doesn't exempt you from the temptations that come with power and influence. And I suppose I have some concerns that, maybe that for many people in power to get to where they had to get to where they are at some of the higher levels, that they had to make substantial compromises to get there. So, um, for that reason, that's probably one of the things that gives me some pause about really heavy political involvement. Um, so yeah, so it is interesting to kind of explore the relationship of politics and the church here in the U.S. Um, some churches would claim to sort of be above politics, if you will. Some churches would say we must be involved in politics, or else the politics will be run by people who do not share our values in any way, shape, or form. And there are some churches probably who seek to be non-divisive, who try to keep things nice and calm. Other churches are like, we believe XYZ and very unapologetically believe this way. And so, yeah, there's such a kaleidoscope, if you will, of the way the church interacts with politics here in the U.S. And it's interesting how contentious, like it can be even very contentious, not only how we relate to politics, if you not only our political positions, if you will, but also how involved we are in politics can be quite contentious as well in Christian circles. And so I don't claim to have all of that figured out. I do think it makes sense that if God has you living in a nation, that you care about the welfare of that nation. I don't think it makes sense to care about like to the exclusion of caring about any other nations. I don't think that makes sense. But I do think it makes sense to steward your involvement in the country that you're in and to be open to whether God is calling you to be in some type of political role in your country. And I don't think, in the same way that I think that the temptation to be corrupted by power doesn't mean that there should be no Christians in power. Well, okay, so I messed up the illustration. What I wanted to say was the same way that I think that wealth has the temptation or the potential to corrupt. I don't think that there should be no Christians who are wealthy in the same way. Just because there are certain temptations and problems in politics doesn't mean that there should be no Christians in politics. That's my opinion. And you're welcome to have your own, because I have fairly libertarian views, and so that means I support you having your own opinion. Now, that doesn't mean your opinion is right. It can be very wrong. But as a libertarian-leaning individual, I still would tend to support your right to have your own opinion, even if it's a wrong opinion. And if it doesn't lean libertarian, it probably is a wrong opinion. So let's just get that out of the way. But anyway, no, I think the whole question of libertarian versus sort of practical politics would make for another discussion that maybe we could have another day. So long. If you voted today, have a good day. If you didn't, also have a good day.